Welcome back to Auntie A's Kitchen. I hope you've had a wonderful week, and today we're going to be making some delicious pasties from a popular bakery in the UK called Greggs, as you've seen in today's thumbnail. We're going to be making a sausage roll, a chicken bake, a cheese and onion pasty, and the classic sausage and bean cheese melt, and all of these encased in a crispy puff pastry. These are really tasty, so let me show you how easy these are to make at home. We will start by seasoning our pork meat with a mix of spices, some salt and pepper, garlic, paprika, marjoram and nutmeg. And I've made a simple shorts video showing this recipe if you're interested on the channel. Then we'll mix this and let it rest in the fridge for about 30 minutes so that it can pick up all the flavours from the spices. And while it's resting in the fridge, we'll have time to prep the other ingredients. Roughly dice up an onion. I'm going to be using this in two of the recipes, the chicken bake and the cheese and onion pasty. Next, salt some water, peel a few potatoes and get them cooking in the boiling water. While the potatoes are cooking, add some butter to a pan, then all of the onion you just cut up and season with some salt, which is not only going to help bring out the moisture, but to cook them down and brown faster. As soon as your onions begin to soften and pick up some colour, empty about 2/3 of them into a bowl that we're going to set aside until later. Then into the same pan with the leftover onions, you're going to add 1 diced up chicken breast. As always, season with a generous amount of salt and pepper and then let this cook, stirring occasionally until your chicken begins to pick up some colour. Next, add about a tablespoon of flour, then mix this in and let it cook for a couple of minutes before then adding some chicken stock. You only need to use a little bit of chicken stock because you want quite a thick creamy sauce inside of a chicken bake. So keep mixing, allowing the butter, flour and stock to form a thick consistency in your pan. After a few minutes, your sauce will have reduced down. You can then go ahead and add some cream and also get this mixed in. Finally, you're going to add a tablespoon of cream cheese and some seasoning. I like the combination of thyme with the chicken, but feel free to add and customize the flavors to your liking. Once again, give everything a good mix and don't forget to have a taste. I add a little bit more salt, and then once you're happy with the flavor and the texture of your creamy chicken sauce, take it off the heat and place it into a bowl to cool down before you place it onto your puff pastry. The sauce will thicken up as it cools. For the cheese and onion pasty, add some of your boiled potato to your cooled down onions. You don't need very many, just a few to help fill out the pasty. Mash your potato with a fork and then mix in well with your onions before then adding a generous amount of cheese. As well as the English cheddar, I like to also add some Gouda as I think this complements the flavours. And you'll notice that I don't use all of the cheese, and that's because you're going to want to put some aside to be able to put into your bean and sausage melt later. While I'm mixing away, may I jump in to say hi to everyone? Please don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed today's recipe, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing for more simple and delicious recipes. Add some pepper. My go-to is always to use some ground black pepper, but if you don't like the heat of this, then feel free to use some white pepper. Then a tablespoon of mustard or mustard powder. And finally some cream cheese. Give one final mix and then set this aside ready for the pastry stage. The last bit of prep is to beat up 1 egg, and this is not only going to help the pastries to stick together, but it's going to give it a golden brown colour in the oven. For today, I'm going to be using a sheet of shop bought puff pastry. As many of you know, I used to live in South Korea, where I had to make everything from scratch because you couldn't find pre-made pastry where I lived. But now that I've recently moved to Germany, it's wonderful to walk into my local supermarket and have such a wide range of pastries to choose from. But if you're living somewhere where you can't get any pre-made pastry, then may I recommend a really simple, quick puff pastry recipe that I have on the channel that's incredibly delicious and works really well. One of the reasons I enjoy using a shop-bought pastry for this recipe is it's already the perfect size. So if, like me, you're using a shop-bought puff pastry, then just give it a little roll out. But if you've ended up making your own puff pastry, then roll it out into a rectangle shape as you see in the video. Then just divide your puff pastry lengthways in half and cut a line along the middle and then into 4 equal pieces, and this is going to form the top and bottom layers of our pasty. We will start with the cheese and onion pasty. Add a generous amount of your cheese and onion mix into the middle of one layer, making sure to keep the edges clear. Then with some of the egg that we whisked up earlier, using your finger, place a little egg wash around the edges before then placing the lid on your pasty. Then gently press down the edges with your fingers and then using a fork, press the edges, and this is not only going to seal the pasty, but it's also going to give it a wonderful decorative edge. For the chicken bake, you're going to repeat the process. This is why it's very important to have quite a thick sauce so that it does not run out on all of the sides. Try to pile in as much of your creamy chicken as you can before then sealing it shut in your pasty. Now for the sausage, bean and cheese melt, you could brown off and pre-cook some sausages, cut these up and place these inside, but I like to make some sausage balls and use these instead. Because the baked beans are runny, I recommend egg washing the sides first before then adding your beans. Then place a generous amount of cheese on top before closing and then sealing the lid. For your sausage roll, and one of my favourites, you could pipe the perfect line on top of your pastry, or as I'm doing, just roughly place a generous amount of meat inside. Don't worry if some of the meat is sticking out, because once it's in the oven, the puff pastry will expand over the top. Next, you're going to want to put some air vents into all of your pasties, making sure to do different lines for each one so that you remember what's inside. Curvy ones for the chicken bakes, arrows for your sausage and bean bake, straight lines for your cheese and onion, and diagonal lines for your sausage rolls, although in today's video I think I kept them quite straight. Then the final thing to do is to place some egg wash over each of your pasties before then placing them into your preheated hot oven at 180°C. And I forgot to mention this earlier, I like to preheat the oven to 200°C, and then when I put the pasties inside, lower it to 180, and you're going to cook them for 25 to 30 minutes until golden brown. So here we have my take on 4 popular delicious UK Greggs bakery recipes, and as you've seen in today's video, they're really easy to make at home. A delicious sausage roll, chicken bake, cheese and onion pasty, and a sausage and bean cheese melt, all encased in a flaky golden puff pastry. I think these are best eaten hot straight out of the oven, but they can also be eaten cold and they're great inside of a packed lunch. You could also freeze these and then place them in the oven when you need them. However you choose to eat them, I think you're going to really enjoy these recipes, and if you're ever in the UK passing a Greggs bakery, may I recommend that you pop in and try one of their many delicious menu items. For example, their vegan sausage roll and their steak bake are also very popular. So as always, thanks for watching, have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. God bless.